Hi everybody, it's Professor McCrimmon. I was just going to show you a couple of quick things about PBWorks and Classroom Salon. I'm going to assume that by the time you watch this, you've successfully established accounts on each of these two platforms that we'll be using for our course this semester. If that's not the case, obviously I hope you'll get in touch with me, and often I can kind of walk you through it over the phone because it's usually just one thing or another that prevents that. But so far as I make this video, I've seen that more than half of you have successfully made your way onto Salon and PBWorks. So I'm going to start with what you'll see on PBWorks. Here's the opening page of our wiki, and obviously what I've done here is I've put really what you would normally find on a Blackboard site here on PBWorks, and one of the reasons why I've used PBWorks instead of Blackboard is that I can make really quick edits to this kind of material, and I don't have to reload stuff, and so it functions more like a wiki. So you'll find the syllabus that's also on Blackboard, but you'll also find it here, and due dates and things like that. So if you click on due dates, you'll see I think a pretty good rendering of exactly what you need to be concerned with throughout the 10 weeks that we're together, and I've just shaded those dates where there's something due. And as you'll see, it's a pretty daunting looking calendar, but one of the things I tried to make clear in the description of the due dates on the syllabus was that you can really get to work on the initial annotations each time for each collection, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, several days in advance if you want, because those collections will be on Classroom Salon. I've loaded 2 so far. I'm going to load the rest of them over the course of this week, so you'll have all the readings by the end of the week for the whole course. Right now you just have collections 1 and 2. And you can also get to work on the reading response in much the same way, several days in advance. The only thing that's really kind of time sensitive and dependent on your classmates and group mates are these follow-up annotations and group responses. And those are the only things you couldn't do, a week or 2 in advance if you want to. So you need to keep an eye on those due dates and make sure that you've got some internet access. And the thing is, you don't have to wait until the night of the 26th to do your follow-up annotation. Once the class has made, or the bulk of the class has made those initial annotations, you can start up, Friday morning if you want and do your follow-up annotation. So you really have kind of a 3-day period at any given time in the semester to get from the first set of initial annotations to the follow-up annotations. And I'm going to show you in a second how to make those work easily. Same way with the reading response, group response. Once those reading responses have been posted to the student workspace on the wiki, you have 3 days essentially to work on your response to your group mates' initial reading responses. So hopefully that calendar will give you a good idea of what you're looking at there. I've gotten a few questions so far by email today that I have a feeling will be answered through this link, that link to the reading responses, group responses, and annotations. I may not have been clear about what that page looks like. I would spend a little time reading this, because this actually describes exactly what I'm looking for in the initial annotations, the reading responses, the follow-up annotations, and the group responses. So, and in fact, this goes on rather extensively into specific questions for each unit, each of the 10 collections of readings. So this is a pretty important document. I may not have highlighted that enough in my initial announcement. So that's reading responses, group responses, and annotations. I also have, if you don't want to wade through the syllabus to get to this, I have the reading assignments themselves listed at this link. So that might be helpful too. And all of this is stuff that you might want to consider printing out. The best way to print something from PBWorks is probably just to copy and paste it onto a Word document. And, if you're the type who wants to have print materials in a notebook or something to keep track of everything, calendar would be a good thing to print. Especially if you're not going to have ready access to the internet at practically all times. This also, by the way, PBWorks is pretty good on an iPad, tablet kind of thing. Might even be okay on a smartphone. Classroom Salon is a little less so, unfortunately. But PBWorks, I think you can usually get to this. You might be able to produce stuff pretty easily on a tablet, or maybe even on an iPhone. I've had students who've done that successfully. Major essay assignment is something to keep an eye on in the next couple of weeks, because we have a draft of that coming up halfway through the course. Peer evaluations, writers' memos, that'll be very contingent on the fact that once the essay drafts come out, you'll be needed to do some evaluations for each other. So you probably don't have to look at that until a little later in the course. Class announcements is where I'm going to basically make all of the regular communications. Once we sort of wean ourselves from Blackboard, this is where I'll probably be going. Once everybody's on this site, I can share a page. You can always share a page over here. You guys can do this as well. But I'll be doing that a lot as a way of kind of alerting you if something's been changed. I'll just share this page and share it with all the course users. But I'm not going to do that until everybody's on here. And so we have a few more people to get logged on to PBWorks. This is the most important tab, the one that you'll be using most often, and it's student work. And that just links to everybody's first name. And what I've done is I've just created a dedicated page for each of you to use. And this is where if you go back to the instructions, it's really very simple how to post to this site. You just go to your dedicated page in student work, you click on edit, and then you just probably copy and paste whatever you've done maybe on Word. I would save everything I'm doing in this class on Word myself. I wouldn't count on, even though it'll all be on this wiki, and even though you can't really break a wiki, it's probably a good idea to have everything on Word. Copy and paste it right into that space, and just keep adding stuff as you write it onto the old stuff, and you'll just have a record of everything you've done. This is another advantage over Blackboard. Blackboard, the problem with that is, I could set up a group discussion board or discussion board feature or something like that. It's really hard to capture everything that you've done individually. And by doing it here on the student workspace, you'll have a record of everything you've written in the course. It's a little bit more trouble for all of us to read your stuff because for you to read your group mates stuff, you'll have to visit these student work pages and go to their new material. That's why it's important for everybody to put the new material on top of the old, and always just remember to click save. So, just as an example of those simple directions, if I'm Lewis, I'm going to my page here, and I'm gonna go to edit, and that's gonna open up the page in edit mode, and then I'm maybe gonna copy and paste some stuff that I've written maybe elsewhere, and I'm gonna come down here to save, and there you go, it's in my page. So I'll edit that again, Lewis. Get rid of that. And save. And the cool thing is about this wiki is that you've got a page history, which is kind of cool, so you can see that all of the changes that have been made to your page, including the two that I just made, you can compare. So there's a nice record that you'll have. So like I say, you can't really break a wiki. And there's some other things we'll be doing with this later on as everybody gets more comfortable with it. But that's pretty much PBWorks. Now, when you look at Salon, it's a little bit more buggy because it's a little bit more in beta mode. It's being done by this human-computer interaction department at Carnegie Mellon. I love it, but it does take some getting used to. And they are still changing things as we speak. And you may, in the course of the 10 weeks, get some notifications from me or from them directly that they've changed one thing or another. They're doing some phasing out. I went up there in February and worked with them a little bit, along with several other professors who were trying out this platform to give them some advice about how to do things. So I'm going to assume that you have successfully gotten in, and this is kind of the first page you would see. You wouldn't see all of this because this is basically everybody, this is what I see in terms of all the salons that I'm using and the last things that have happened for me. But the key thing is you want to go to your salon, my salons here, and that will send you probably just to this one because this is going to be your only one. I've got other ones that I subscribe to and that I've created for other classes. But so we're in summer 13 AM Lit. So when you open up that salon, this is roughly the first thing you'll see. And over here you'll have 10 collections by the end of the week. For now you've just got collection 1 and 2 because that's all I've loaded. But let me show you basically the idea between an initial annotation and a follow-up. So if you go to the collection, you can and that's what I just did there is probably not the best way to open it in truth. So let me try that again. It'll open it that way, but it'll open it to the default setting, which is this discussion setting. What you really want to do is go, when you're first reading the texts that make up this course, start with annotate this document. It's the little pen, the little fountain pen here. If you click on that, it will open up a version of the document that is totally clean. And by the way, I think you can make this bigger. I think I think this is how you, because I know it's kind of small. So if you want to make it bigger, you can click that plus side and read it in bigger format. So when you see something that you want to make a comment about, let's say you want to comment on, how Smith is comparing the New England experiment with previous empires or cultures throughout human history, and you wanted to make that comment based on this line of his, you'll have a chance to make a comment right here in the box and save it. And that is really what I'd like for you to do at least 4 times throughout each collection. And obviously there's a lot of readings here, so and so I'm just going to clear this instead of saving it. But that would show up then as one of the annotations that someone in the class has made to the readings. And obviously there's more than just the Smith, and you can refer to the syllabus to see what's out here. And I want you to kind of give it a reading first, a full reading, and then decide where you want to focus your energies in terms of your annotations. So what's interesting is, and I'm just going to do a little test case here to show you what this ends up looking like in the other mode. So I'm just going to say testing here. Now, this is me making an actual comment, okay? So this is an annotation that I've made. Now, let's go back out to the actual salon as you're first appearing here. Here's collection 1. Now, let's say everybody's made their initial annotation, so not just that one I just made, that mock one I just made, but in fact, 4 annotations plus maybe times 20-something students. So now there's like 100 annotations of this collection. And that's why I like to have everybody do that by, say, Thursday night, and then you've got until like Sunday night to get in there and look at what everybody else has said. So to do that, I would suggest that you go into discuss. So the little cloud there, the little dialogue cloud, click on that. And actually, if you click on collection 1, this is that default setting. This is what they call Discussion Navigator. So imagine 80 or to 100 comments by your 20 to 25 classmates throughout this reading. So you scroll down, you'd see a lot of other annotations being made, some to Winthrop, some to Nathaniel Bacon near the end, or some to Smith. So don't everybody just jump on the first few lines. We want to get everything annotated here. Now, dig this. If you see a comment that a classmate made about a passage, and you want to reply to that classmate's comment, that's what I'm looking for, I think, ultimately, if at all possible, with these follow-up annotations, so that we can actually have something like a classroom discussion online about certain passages in the text. So let's try that, and then obviously you just type something in there, and boom, that's a reply to a classmate. So now you've got a whole kind of discussion thread going on to that initial comment. So let's give that a shot the first week, see how it goes. There's all sorts of other options for how we might use the initial and follow-up annotations, but I wanted to give you a visual on that. Okay, so I'll talk to you soon.